Saturday, once a week at 8 o'clock and goes on for about 90 minutes. In a couple of minutes, we'll quickly start in about a minute or so. Bhagavad-Gita word by word meaning session. We do this every Saturday from 8 o'clock to about 9:30. Without much delay, we will now begin. The shloka that we will start today is pinned to the room. People, for the reference sake, we can always keep shloka number 21 from the second chapter. That is where we begin with. Hari Om. नारायणाय परिपूर्णगुणार्णवाय विश्वोदयस्थितिलयो नियतिप्रदाय ज्ञानप्रदाय विबुधासुरसौख्यदुःख सत्कारणाय वितताय नमो नमस्ते नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् हरिः ओम् देवं नारायणं नत्वा सर्वदोषविवर्जितं परिपूर्णं गुरुंश्चागीतार्थं वक्ष्यामि देशतः लक्ष्मीनारायणं नत्वा पूर्णबोधान् गुरूनपि कुर्मः श्रीकृष्णगीतायाः भाष्यादुक्तार्थसङ्ग्रहम्. Quick recap to where we were in terms of what we have seen as the story so far. We saw that in the first chapter, it could be broadly divided into a couple of sections, a few sections. First is where the inertia got broke. That is where we saw Dhritarashtra's inquiry to Sanjaya. That is where the status quo was completely rattled. Bhishmacharya's fall and that inquiry leading us to the narration of the first day of the event of the war. And then we get to see that Duryodhana from shloka number 2 till about shloka number 13, we could see that the Kauravas begin the army with a lot of restlessness, and to that extent where everything appears upside down. His army looks small to him. The opposition army looks bigger to him. He can't name too many warriors on his side, though he has a bigger army strength on his side. He can see a lot more names, all Maharathis on the other side. And then he could see that, Bhishma is the weakest link, complete wrong reading from Duryodhana's side. And even the numbers, it appears as though he is reading the numbers also quite wrong. So the first, instance of the explanation given by Sanjaya, where he goes on to explain how the Kauravas took to the war, shows a lot of jittery beginning from the Kaurava side. And then, contrary to that, we get to see that the Pandava beginning was very divine. The beautiful expressions like Tapah Shvetair Bhayayuke, Mahatishyantane Sito, Madhava Pandavaschaiva, Divyo, so all Divya, like Panchajanyam Krishikesho. So all of them are like very beautifully explained. The way the Pandavas entry to this entire army or the war, the first day, the explanation comes out very, very beautifully. But that is not it. Soon after that explanation comes, there is a thing that happens where Arjuna, he starts contemplating a lot. Yavadeta niriksheham, yothyamana daveksheham, samavekshya. So, like, all this iksha, too much of observation, too much of grasping, too much of contemplation on the people. And he starts developing that Atma Swabhava, Drishtuvemam Swajanam Krishna, Swajana Bhava. All the Maharathas, all the, Vikranta, Samithinjaya, all these kind of explanations that Sanjaya gave about the warriors on the battlefield. Suddenly, Arjuna starts looking at them as Swajana, Acharya, Pitaraha, Putraha, Tataiva, Pitamaha, Matulaha, Shvashuraha, all the relatives, right? So he starts developing that association, and then he goes on to the physical condition of the Vishada. He starts looking at, Sidanti mama gatrani, my limbs are freezing, mukam cha parishushati, my face is drying up, parched, completely parched face and mouth. Vepatuscha sharire, my body is trembling, roma harshascha jayate. So all of this we get to see. And then he goes on to give a lot of reasoning to Krishna that why this entire gory kind of a war is going to cause the entire destruction of the family bloodlines. And with that, we will all be relegated to Naraka. Right? And he quotes, quotes as if he is speaking from the scriptures. This kind of a war is going to relegate us permanently to Naraka. That's what we have heard in the scriptures and things like that. So finally he says, okay, I will not fight, right? And then the second chapter, we come to the second chapter. So those are the quick 3 points about the first chapter. We move on to the second chapter where Krishna first goes on to say with very short and concise message, get up and fight. Okay, what you're doing is anarya jushta. It's unworthy of a noble person. A noble person, is, I mean, we saw the definition. A arya is somebody who's always karya bandha, kartavya bandha. So you are anarya. You are behaving unlike an arya, unlike a noble person. You are doing something that is asvargyakara, which is not taking you anywhere higher. And then you are also doing something that is akirtikara, which is also going to bring you bad name. So that's a very beautiful way we saw that. Putting the contrary view of all three words, we get to see the purpose of life. Our purpose of life is to be kartavya sadhakas, be aryas, be noble to the extent where we deliver our duties to the T without any shake in them. And we become swargapara. We always try to reach a higher and higher abode. Try to maximize our own potential. Try to uplift ourselves constantly. That is the purpose of life after being Aryas, after having properly reconciled, properly in the autopilot phase of delivering our duties. Be Swargapara and then be Kirtikara. Bring a name. That's the ultimate, right? So these are the three key things which Krishna beautifully defines as the purpose of life, the way we can see it, right? Because that's what he's telling Arjuna. You are behaving Anarya Justa, Aswargyakara, and Akirtikara. So the reverse of it is what our purpose of life should be. And then he says, Klaibyam Matmakamaha, don't become like a Napumsaka. That Napumsaka is primarily something that is anti-Purusha. Purusha is basically the Pureshete, the one who dwells in the body, right? The energy, the soul, the Atma. There are different ways we know that person. Also the Bhagavan Amsha inside all of us. And Kliba is basically anti-Purusha to the extent where it will take us away from delivering the Purusharthas, Dharma, Arthaka, again all rooted in Dharma, again rooted in Kartavya. Right? So again, the message from Krishna is get up and fight, do your duty. What you're going to do is making you Anarya. What you're going to do is making you Aswargapara. What you're going to do is going to make you Akirtikara. It is going to bring you a bad name. Arjuna gets into another tangent. How can I? And then start giving an explanation. These people, Drona, Bhishma, are worthy of my puja. How can I fight with them? I can't retaliate. Okay, no, he goes on to say, but finally, good thing about Arjuna, the way we saw that, right? He surrenders to Krishna and says, okay, my mind is completely bewildered. Okay, I can't determine what is good or not. I don't know whether to kill them is good or whether to be killed by them is good. I surrender unto you. I am your Shishya. He says that. That's one good thing. Unlike Duryodhana's nervous feeling, where he goes on to rant, rave, complete rhetoric with Bhishma. Like, he's telling Drona that you should all protect Bhishmacharya. He gets into a different tangent. But good thing about Arjuna, even in the agony, he knows his agony and he knows where to take the refuge. These are the two key things, right? So that is where many Bhashyakaras also call him the Aparoksha Jnani. He has the direct realization of the reality, the truth. May not be the truth about himself. He does waver once in a while. He's not completely controlled, but he understands that Bhagavan is Sri Krishna. We have to surrender and things like that. And then we get to see very briefly that Sanjaya's very two key important messages. One he calls Arjuna Vishidantam, the crybaby. That's the description. All Mahabahu, all Dhananjaya, all Parantapa, all of these are forgotten adjectives for Arjuna now. He's a crybaby. He's been called a Vishidantam, a crybaby. We are all as good as our last performance, right? So that's the message from Sanjaya, the way he describes Arjuna. And then Krishna, looking at everything that Arjuna says, he says, Prahasanniva, with a mandahasa, with a gentle smile on his face, he goes on to deliver the message. That is where we started from shloka number 11. Till about shloka number 20, we saw that, the primary message from Krishna has been that don't cry. Okay? We all have been eternal people. The one, he never uses the word Atma, he doesn't uses the word Antakarana, he doesn't use any, he says Dehinaha, Sharirinaha. And this is very quite scientific, the way we know, right? I mean, we always say my body, my hand, my head. The minute I say my hand, I'm distancing myself from my body, which means my body is something and I am something else. This is inherently known to everyone. Even a small kid will perhaps be able to allude to this. So Krishna doesn't say Atma, he doesn't say Antakarana, he doesn't say anything, right? He only says Dehi, the one in the Dehi. Dehi Naha, in the shloka number 13, shloka number 13 of the second chapter, Dehi Naha Asmin Yatha Dehi. Like in Dehi Naha, the one inside the Deha, just like how he moves on from the adolescent days to the youthful days, changing the body. The body during the adolescent days is different to the body in the youthful days. The body in the youthful days is so different to the body in the middle age, and the body of the middle age body is very different to the old age body. And then after the Krishna sees, just like that, he moves on. Once this body is given up, he moves on to a new body, the Antara Prapi. Okay, there is a new body that will get assumed by the Dehinaha. And he uses the word Dehinaha. Important point to note, right? He never says anything else other than what is understood. He speaks at the lowest of the realities possible, which is the Panchabhuta level, right? He speaks as much to the ground level as possible. He's not talking anything high end stuff, right? He's speaking all simple stuff. And then he goes on to explain, you have to be a Dhira. You can't get swayed by the thoughts of, moving from one state of body to the other. Okay. And then he goes on to say that, people who can control their emotions during these kind of, turbulences in their mental state are the ones who take, completely pledged in the path of Amritatva. Amritatva is the immortality, right? So, people, if you really want to achieve big things, you have to give up your small, momentary, urges to keep up the bodily, upkeep, right? Sometimes we may have to, like many people who study very hard, we do see them completely ignoring their, cosmetic look, their vanity, right? Their beautification process. Sometimes they look uncouth and things like that. So these are momentary, and all of this sukha, dukkha, they're all matra sparshahat. They're all momentary only by the contact of the tanmatra with indriya. And then he goes on to explain, but very beautifully where we concluded, shloka number 19 and 20, the way Arjuna started off saying that, as if he is quoting from scriptures, very beautifully Krishna delivers two things. One, he delivers the message. Ya enam veti hantaram yaschenam manyate hatam. This is shloka number 19 in the second chapter. He is quoting directly from the Kataka Upanishad. We saw this also. Now, a couple of things in this. One, he gives a very beautiful summary that there is nothing called death. Nobody can kill this, nor can anybody get killed by this. This is the Dehinaha, the one inside the Deha, or the Sharirinaha, the one inside the Sharira. We can somehow understand that to be Atma, things like that, right? I mean, that's the translation we see predominantly. But observe closely, none of the shlokas carry the word Atma in this chapter, right? In this chapter, we don't see the word Atma, or in this section at least, we never see the word Atma. It is something that we, use as a implied meaning. Like Krishna doesn't say that. Krishna only says the one in the Deha, the one in the Sharira, and that is known, right? The minute I say my hand, as we spoke, we distance ourselves from the body and myself, right? So he not only quotes scriptures, right, to negate Arjuna. Okay, so he basically gives a beautiful summary of everything that has been spoken. He also kind of, quotes directly from the scripture and not just another scripture, right? He's quoting from the Vedas, the Upanishads, right? From the Kataka Upanishad, one of the most fundamental Upanishads. Like Upanishads are like the nursery rhymes for us today, right? These are the first things that a student will learn when they enter the Gurukula. So one of the most important message that Krishna also delivers is, and again quoting two shlokas from Kataka Upanishad, right? Continuous, no? Ya enam veti hantaram, yaschenam manyate hatam, ubhoto na vijanito, nayam hantina hanyate. That's also from Kataka Upanishad. The next one, Najayate Niyate va kadachin, nayam bhutva bhavitavana bhuyah, ajo nityah shashvatoyam purano, nahanyate hanyamane sharire. That is also from the same Upanishad. Now, this is very deliberate. So if two shlokas in succession are exactly reproduced from the Kataka Upanishad, the way they appear in the Kataka Upanishad, it is perhaps looks like a very deliberate thing from Sri Krishna. He definitely is cancelling Arjuna's claim that whatever he speaks from the scriptures is where his agony is rooted in, like Narake Niyatam Vasaha, right? But he's also making a very important claim that whatever Arjuna you're going to hear from me, I'm not going to tell you anything new. These are all something known to you. You just need to, bring up your memory back. So he's just reminding Arjuna, this is a very important message I think we need to know. There is nothing new that we can see in Bhagavad-Gita. What the speciality perhaps of Bhagavad-Gita is entirely different. Okay, one of the clue could be that, at the end of every chapter we keep telling Yoga Shastre, Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade. So this is a Shastra. Shastra is a technique, right? Shastra is a step-by-step guide. So a good collection of the wisdom from across the anthology of our scriptures, including Upanishads and some of the beautiful gems of Mahabharata, many other scriptures like Manu Dharma Shastra, many things. Maybe this is a beautiful collection of those arranged in such a way that when we look at this entire series of discourse coming from Arjuna as part of a conversation between himself and Arjuna, okay, perhaps it's a very step-by-step guide, right? So that is one thing that we need to bear in mind. Okay, so few things about the last couple of shlokas. One is that it's a beautiful summary of the eternality of the soul, of the Atma, the Dehi, the Dehinaha, the Sharirinaha. He hasn't called them as Atma, right? He has just called it as Dehi, Dehinaha, Sharirinaha, right? Eternality, there is no destruction of it. If somebody is getting killed or somebody is killing it, that view is wrong. Okay, that's the eternality that he establishes. Don't cry. Okay, and then he goes on to say that this is the scripture. Okay, oh boy, Arjuna, this is the scripture, not what you're talking about. He negates us completely. Thirdly, nothing new. You have heard them. You studied them the first thing in your Gurukula, right? Karka Upanishad is perhaps one of the first things that we learn when we enter the Gurukula. Okay, Upanishad Samit Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Gunavtu. These are the Shanti mantras of initiation. And these are also Shanti mantras of the Upanishad, which means Upanishads are perhaps one of the first things that students would learn in the Gurukula, right? So we get to see this. So we move on now. Shloka number 21. The shloka is pinned to the room. We can perhaps look at that, right? What we do is, this is a beautiful website, a very handy website, and we will use it for a couple of things. One is the Padacheda. When we look at the shloka reads like this: Veda vinashinam nityam ya enamajam avyayam katham sa purusha partha kam ghasayati hantikam. Right? If we scroll down a little bit on this website, we do notice that there is something called the Anvaya, there is something called the Padacheda, under something else called the transliteration. Transliteration is basically writing the same shloka in an English script, the IANS or some English script, so people who don't know Devanagari or some other lipi can somehow appreciate what is written there, right? So that's a transliteration is basically the English script of the same shloka. Anvaya, you will see, Anvaya basically means the prose ordering. Okay, the Sanskrit shlokas can be jumbled up in their verse and the meaning don't change. But nonetheless, it's good to hear how they sound in a spoken Samskrita kind of a way. And Padacheda is basically a lot of words are conjoined by certain rules. This is basically split every word. So Veda Vinashinam is actually Veda Avinashinam. Veda Avinashinam Nityam. Yaha Enam becomes Ya Enam. That aha, Visarga goes missing. Yaha Enam, Ya Enam, Enamajam Avyayam. Katham Saha Purushaha. Katham Saha Purushaha becomes Sa Purushaha. Purushaha Partha Kam Ghatayati Hantikam. Right? This is the Padacheda. We can go on top. There is a link called the dictionary. When we click on before we go to the dictionary, let's see how it sounds in Anvaya. The Anvaya is basically, we saw the breakdown of the words from the shloka. Now, if we rearrange them, right, they should sound like a proper spoken Samskrita. He Partha, Yaha Enam Avinashanam Nityam Ajam Avyayam Veda Saha Purushaha Katham Kam Ghatayati Kam Hanti. He's asking the question, right? Ends with a question mark. What does it mean? We can look at the dictionary. Hey Partha, O Partha, which is O son of Pratha, O Arjuna. Yaha, the one who, Enam, okay, this Avinashinam, the one that is indestructible, Nityam, the one that is eternally current, eternally now, right? Ajam, without birth, Naja, Na Jam, iti Ajam, without any birth, unborn. Avyayam, unchangeable. Na Vyeti. Avyayam is Na Vyayam or imperishable, right? Imperishable means there is no change. Veda knows. It means, Hey Partha, the one who knows this to be without destruction, without birth, always eternally current and unchangeable. Saha Purushaha, that person, Katham Kam Ghatayati, how can he kill someone? Kam Hanti, right? Uh, whom can play him, or whom can, so how can he kill someone? How can he get killed? Right? Basically, the same thing that we saw in the previous two shlokas. He's now putting them in his own words, because the last two shlokas are exact pramana, the substantiation, the quoting, exact quotation from the Upanishad, which is the pramana, which is the ultimate proof, right? If I have to say anything as moral, dharma, anything as wisdom, the ultimate wisdoms are contained in the Upanishad. So after having quoted the Upanishad, now he's putting them in his own words. Oh Partha, how can anybody kill? How can anybody get killed? How can he think like that? One who knows this sharirinaha, this dehinaha, the one inside the body, to be avinashi, ajam, nityam, avyajam. If you know these things about the atma, how can you even think? Right? That's the question he's asking. And this is the question for what Arjuna was making a point that ya enam veti hatna. Sorry, in the first chapter somewhere he says etanna hantum ichchami natopi madhusudana. I think shloka number 35 of the first chapter. If somebody has a book, okay, you can perhaps look at that. 35. He says etanna hantum ichchami. I don't want to kill them. Natopi madhusudana. Even if I get killed, oh Madhusudana, right? For that point, he's basically giving a rebuttal Krishna after quoting beautifully from the scripture, right? So that's about it. We will quickly see what the Aurobindo translation says. If you come back to click on the link or the shloka on the top, for the same shloka underneath page, scroll down a little, you will see Aurobindo's interpretation. He who knows it is the pronoun, right? But pronoun is referring to that Atma, which was called as Sharirinaha, Dehinaha. One who knows it as immortal, eternal, imperishable, spiritual existence. Again, this is implied, spiritual existence. How can that man slay, O Partha, or cause to be slain? Right? Very simple. Now we move on to the next. Come on top, and you have the next tab. You can click on the next tab and go to shloka number 22. वासांसि जीर्णानि यथा विहाय नवानि गृह्णाति नरोपराणि तथा शरीराणि विहाय जीर्णान्यन्यानि संयाति नवानि देहि. So scroll down a little, we will see what the padacheda, the word breakdown, looks like. Vasansi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grihnati naraha aparani. Naraha aparani becomes naroparani. Tatha sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani sanyati navani dehi. So this is how the word breakdown is. And when they get jumbled, if you look a little above, the above section is called the Anvaya. The Anvaya reads like Yatha Naraha Jirnani Vasansi Vihaya Aparani Navani, in brackets you can say, Vasansi. Aparani Navani Grihnati Tatha, in bracket Dehi. Tatha Dehi Jirnani Sharirani Vihaya Anyani Navani, in bracket Sharirani Sanyati. Very beautiful example. This is one of the very powerful shlokas in the freedom struggle of India, by the way. When we look at the Gita Rahasya of Balagangadhar Tilak, this shloka had a huge impact in terms of mobilizing the crowd. And this is perhaps one of the very strong mooting points around people going forward to even forget about the lies and things like that. So it's a very powerful, motivating line. We will see what it means. We heard the Anvaya, the dictionary, right? When you click on the word, click link on the dictionary. Yatha naraha, as just like how the man, Jirnani vasamsi, the torn out, the worn out clothes. Vasamsi is raiments or garments or the clothes. Jirnani vasamsi, vihaya, having given up, having cast away. Aparani navani grihnati, other new ones he wears or he takes up, grihnati. Tatha dehi, similarly the dehi, the one inside the deha, jirnani sharirani vihaya, having given up the worn out body or the old body, right? Vihaya. Anyani navani sharirani sanyati. Other new, in bracket, body takes up or enters into, right? So very beautiful. Let's see what the interpretation from Aurobindo says. If you come down below, see Aurobindo interpretation on the link or the shloka, the main link of the shloka. If you come below, you see the embodied soul or the Atma or Dehi, right? Dehi. It's not called soul or Atma. It's called the Dehi. Dehi primarily means one inside the Deha. Simple. So the embodied Dehi casts away old and takes up the new bodies, just like a man who changes the worn out garments for the new. Very simple, very brief translation. Nice. Right? This is the basic meaning. So again, all these, shloka number 11 to shloka number 30, it's all about understand the eternality of Partha, stop crying. Okay, we will see that. It's all about, it began with Ashochya Nanvashochastam. You're crying for things that don't deserve your cry. Shloka number 11 starts from there. We will see. This is all about establishing that this Atma is going to be there forever. Don't bother. Don't cry. Get back to your consciousness, right? So that's the whole message of these 20 shlokas from shloka number 11 to shloka number 30. We will see. We will go up and, on the top of the screen, we have the next tab. We click on the next, we move on to the next shloka. Shloka number 23 from the second chapter. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakah, na chainam kledayantyaho, na shoshayati marutaha. Right? So, we will come down a little, scroll down a little. Padacheda, na enam, nainam. Nainam is na enam. Okay, like eka, 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 right? So, na enam chindanti shastrani, na enam dahati pavakaha, na cha enam becomes chainam, na cha enam kledanti apaha becomes kledantyaapaha, apaha na apo na, so aha becomes o. So, na cha enam kledanti apaha, na shoshayati marutaha. These are the breakdown of the words. Now, how do they sound when we put them into the prose order? The Anvaya on the top, right? You see the Anvaya. Enam shastrani na chindanti. Enam pavakaha na dahati. Cha enam apaha na kledayanti. Marutaha na shoshayati. A lot of explanation given with a pronoun. Again, he's using the pronoun. He's not calling it as Atma. We know last used word for the reference is Dehi, the one who is the Dehi. What does it mean? We go on the top, we have the dictionary, the link called the dictionary. When we click on that, Enam Shastrani na chindanti. Isko Shastra, koi bhi Shastra, छेद नहीं कर सकता. Like, it can't kill, it not cleave, it not cut. No weapon can cut it, right? No weapon can cleave it. Enam pavakaha na dahati. No fire can burn it. Cha enam, also enam apaha na kledayanti. No water can drench it, drown it, right? Wet it, right? Kledayanti. Nacha marukaha na shoshayati. Nor can any wind dry it up, parch it completely, right? So there is something called drying up. Now, there are a couple of ways we can look at this, right? One, these are some of the physical conditions that he was talking about, right? Arjuna was talking about my face is getting dried up, my skin appears to be burning. Okay, tvakchaiva paridahyati, mukham cha parishusyati. Like, so he's talking about some physical conditions. Now, after explaining the previous stanza that nobody can kill it, nobody can get killed by it. If somebody is thinking that way, they are completely wrong. How can you kill? How can you think like that? And then understand. See, the Atma is constantly moving on from one stage to the other. You will give up the old body and enter into a new body, just like how you give up the old clothes and enter take on the new clothes. Now he says, nothing can cut it, nothing can burn it, nothing can wet it, drown it, drench it, nothing can dry it. Right? That's when you go on the shloka link or the shloka next to the dictionary, you will see the Aurobindo interpretation. Come down a little bit. It says, weapons cannot cleave it, nor the fire burn it, nor can the waters drench it, nor the wind dry it. Right? It is something that we can keep on adding. Okay, so again, he's explaining. Now, a couple of things, right? One is perhaps we are looking at the four key elements here. Right? Shastra, the weaponry comes from earth. Okay, Pavakaha is fire. Okay, Apaha is water, and Marutaha is wind. These are the four elements. Okay, so there, the Atma, so basically he's distinguishing between the Atma and the elements, the material elements, which are the Pancha Mahabhuta, right? So he's clearly drawing the distinction between the two, one way of looking at it. Right? And secondly, another way of looking at it is that, basically he's negating Arjuna's condition. He goes on to say, right, see danti mama prani mukham cha parishushyati. When Arjuna starts off his explanation of grief, he goes on with those, right, explanation that, my face is drying up, my skin is burning, things like that. Right? So this is the shloka, beautiful shloka. And we move on, shloka number 24. For that, we need to go on top of the screen and click on the next. When we click on the next, we see that. Shloka number 24, chapter number 2. Achedyo yamadahyo yamakletyo shoshya evacha nitya sarvagata sthanu rachalo yam sanatana. Okay, so after explaining the previous shloka about the four basic elements that can't do anything to the soul or dehi, the atma, we will see what this one is telling. Padacheda, when we look at the Padacheda, scroll down a little. Achedyaha ayam. Achedyaha ayam becomes achedyo ayam. Aha becomes O. And in the next process, A from ayam goes missing. It goes hiding with a S kind of a mark. The S mark, we know there is an implied A there, but we don't actually say that explicitly. We just extend achedyo ayam. Like, achedyaha ayam. Adahyaha ayam. Similarly, adahyaha ayam becomes adahyo ayam. Akledyaha ashosyaha becomes akledyo shosyah. Shoshya eva, shoshya, ashoshya eva. That aha goes missing here. The fourth one, aha goes missing. The visarga goes missing. Ashoshya eva cha nityaha sarvagataha sthanuhu achalam sthanur achalam. The uhu, the visarga becomes ur, like an urkara, refa. Sthanur achalaha. Achalaha ayam achaloyam. Achaloyam sanatanaha. So these are the breakdown. When we now jumble them, we get the proper order, right? The prose order. That is given in Anvaya. The Anvaya says, Ayam Achedyaha, Ayam Adahyaha, Akledyaha, Ashoshyaha cha, Ayam Nityaha, Sarvagataha, Sthanuhu, Achalaha, Sanatanaha eva. Okay. This is the explanation given by Krishna. When we go on top, is my voice audible?
Yes, Kartaji, it's audible.
One moment. Is it still audible?
Yes, it is audible, Kartaji.
Okay. No, I mean, I just got a call. I just thought of cancelling all calls. Okay. Yeah. So, shloka number 24, right? When you look at the Anvaya, it says, Ayam Achedyaha, Ayam Adahyaha, Akledyaha, Ashoshyaha cha, Ayam Nityaha, Sarvagataha, Sthanu, Achalaha, Sanatanaha cha. So, he's explaining more and more attributes of this Dehi, Dehinaha, Sharirinaha, not calling it, right? He doesn't say Atma because that might become a little more technical. He goes very, very basic and he's talking about the bottommost of the Tattva, right? When we click on the dictionary, we will see this. Ayam Achedyaha, this is uncleavable, uncuttable. Ayam Adahyaha, this is incombustible, unburnable, that's the word, right? Ayam Akledyaha, this cannot be drenched. Ayam Ashoshyaha, this cannot be dried or parched. Okay. Cha Ayam, also this is Nityaha, eternally current, eternally now. Sarvagat.
That language, we call it as Samyak Kritam, Sanskritam, which means it is a completely refined language which does not need any new words. And the way it works, especially because Atma was something that Bharataji was trying to explain, I thought it's very relevant at this point of time, where any particular object that we try to explain is based on its features. It's not based on the product itself. That is the way we have to understand this concept. Why is it that a particular thing can be defined by many words? It's because it defines the traits of it. For example, lotus. In English, we use the word lotus, right? But in Sanskrit, if we see, Padma can be one of the words, Kamala can be one of the words. So, why? Because there are so many traits for lotus, depending on that. It is there in water. Even the water does not touch it. It is like, in fact, Krishna in Bhagavad-Gita itself uses a simile like Padma Patra Ivam Basam, like the lotus leaf, the water does not, though it is in water, the wetness does not affect the leaf of the lotus, right? So that is the way a person should be. So a lot of things like this. So for every word, depending on the trait, we actually can have different terminologies to address it. um, Suppose there is a word called plant in English. Why do we call a plant as a plant? We really don't know, right? In Sanskritam, we call it as padapaha. It's a beautiful, beautiful word. Why is it called a padapa? Is because padaihi pibati padapaha. The plants. How does it get its source of water? It's because it drinks through its feet. It seems. What is the feet of a plant? It is the roots, right? So padaihi pibati padapaha. So the one which drinks from its feet, which gets its nourishment from its feet, is called padapa. So it is again a trait. Anything that floats, vriksha, the tree, gets its name because it floats. The wood actually floats in water. We get the trait. One other interesting thing that comes to my memory is akshi. Our eyes are called as akshi. Today, with so much of research, we all know that even when a person dies, the eyes still live for some time. So, naksharati, akshara we say, right? That which does not um, perish is
Oh,
akshara. So,
hello.
akshi means the eyes which survive even after a person dies. Namaste, Bharataji. So, I was just giving the reason for how Atma can be many different names because your network went off. Jai Shri Krishna. Bharataji, you're
Hello.
in?
Where was I last?
I was just explaining that, one word can be represented by several words in Sanskrit. So, because your network was not there, I was just explaining, like, how aksha means that which does not have a kshara, and akshi can also represent our eyes. Similarly, atma can be represented by different names as you were bringing it out. So, you can just continue from where you left. I was just, waiting for you to join. Jai Shri Krishna.
Ah, but which word were you explaining, Bhagini?
We were Akledya. You explained Akledya from the dictionary, and there we were when we lost you.
From the dictionary, is it? Oh, in the previous
Yeah.
shloka.
Yeah.
This is shloka
Shloka
number
number
25.
24.
Oh,
24.
20. Oh, I am reading shloka number 25. My miss. Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, we will go through this again quickly. अच्छेद्यो यमदास्यो यमक्लेद्यो शोष्य एव च नित्यः सर्वगतः स्थाणुरचलो यम सनातनः. So when we look at the padacheda, अच्छेद्यः ayam, अदाह्यः ayam, अक्लेद्यः अशोष्यः एव च नित्यः सर्वगतः स्थाणुः अचलः ayam सनातनः. These are the word breakdown. And when we look at them, jumbling them to form the prose order, we see it as Ayam Achedyaha, Ayam Adahyaha, Akledyaha, Ashoshyah, Ayam Nityaha, Sarvagataha, Sthanuhu, Achalaha, Sanatanaha Eva. On the top, when we click on dictionary, we see what it means. Ayam Achedyaha, this is uncleavable. Ayam Adahyaha, this is incombustible, unburnable. One is unbreakable, one is incombustible. Akledyaha, this is undrinkable, unwettable, undrownable, whatever you want to call it. Right? Ashoshyaha, you cannot parch it, like it can't be dried up. Cha ayam nityaha, Sarvagataha, it is eternally now, all pervading. Sthanuhu, very, very stable. Achalaha, immobile, and Sanatanaha, forever and ever, eternal, right? Now, when we look at Eva, indeed, right? So when we go back on the link called the Shloka and look at Aurobindo interpretation, primarily says, so again, in the previous Shloka, he says, Nenam Chindanti Shastrani, no weapon can cleave it, and no fire can burn it, no wind can dry it, no water can wet it. Now he's summarizing that. This is, Aurobindo interpretation says, it is uncleavable, it is incombustible, it can neither be drenched nor dried. It is eternally stable, immobile, all pervading, and it is forever and ever and ever. That's the kind of an impression that we get, right? So, again, quick summary of what we saw in the previous shloka. Now, he continues this, right? We go on top, we click on the next button. When we go on next, we go to the next shloka. It says, Avyakto yamachintyo yam avikaryo yamuchyate. Avyakto yamachintyo yam avikaryo yamuchyate. Tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi. Right? Similar padacheda for this, when you scroll down a little. Avyaktaha ayam, achintyaha ayam, avikaryaha ayam uchyate. Tasmat evam, tasmadevam. Ta becomes the. So this avyaktaha ayam, avyaktoyam is similar to what we saw previously, right? Aha becomes O and A goes hiding ayam. Right? Avyaktaha ayam, avyaktoyam, achintyaha ayam, achintyoyam. Avikaryaha ayam, avikaryoyam. Tasmat evam, tasmadevam. Viditva enam, viditvainam, like eka, eka, ekaika. Viditva enam, viditvainam. Na anushochitam, just like Krishna Arjuna becomes Krishna Arjuna. Na anushochitam, arhasi. Now these are the split of the words for the Cheda. When we put them into the proper order, the prose order, the spoken order, right? It becomes ayam avyaktaha, okay, ayam achintyaha, ayam adhikaryaha uchyate. Tasmat evam enam evam viditva. Anushochitum na arhasi. Okay, he's basically trying to substantiate what he started off with. Don't cry, right? We will see what it means. It sounded like a statement in Sanskrit, but many of us will not know what it means. So we click on this dictionary link. It's a beautiful website, but we will see every website will have its limitations. But let's see the merit in every website, right? So this one is beautiful because the information is beautifully arranged. When we click on the dictionary, ayam avyaktaha, it is unmanifest. Or vyakta. Vyakta is also expression, right? Vyakt karta, I express myself, right? So it is inexpressible, right? So ayam avyaktaha. Now avyakta, vyakta, there's a beautiful moksha dharma parva where we get to hear a beautiful definition of it. Indriyer grishyate yat yat tat tat tad vyaktam iti sthiti. Like whatever can be grasped by the indriya, by the senses. Okay, tat tad vyaktam iti sthiti. That is known as vyakta. Basically, it is graspable, understandable, expressible, right? So that's how it becomes vyakta or manifest. See, what is manifest is what is basically known to us through the indriya. And then avyaktamiti vidyayam, that is avyakta. Okay, lingagrahyamati indriyam, which is beyond the grasp of the indriya or the bodily, existence. So avyakta, while it is unmanifest, the way it is called, basically we are unable to visualize or understand the manifestation of it. So ayam avyaktaha, though it is unmanifest, avyakta, manifestation only from my ability to grasp it. So you can't grasp it. That's the message, right? So none of you can know this, the Dehi, the one inside the body. Right? He's not even using the word Atma. Ayam achintyaha, it is unthinkable. Ayam avikaryaha, he is na vikara. He is ayam, avikaryaha, this is immutable. Uchyate, has been spoken so, has been described so. Tasmat, therefore, enam evam, is so aise, this as such, knowing, viditva is knowing. So, tasmat enam evam viditva. Therefore, having known this thus, knowing this thus, Anushochitum na arhasi. You don't deserve to cry. Okay, you ought not to cry. Anushochitam na arhasi. Okay, there is no, arhata for you to cry. That's the kind of an impression, right? So, click on the link called the shloka and then scroll down. Let's read what Aurobindo interpretation says. It is unmanifest, it is unthinkable, it is immutable. So it is described. Therefore, knowing it as such, with all these qualities, thou should not grieve. Now, see, couple of things about this shloka, very interesting things about this shloka. Okay, one is that this is all about don't cry, as I spoke earlier. From shloka number 11 onward, we are hearing one constant message. We will hear the same constant message till shloka number 30. This is shloka number 25. Another 5 more shlokas, we only hear don't cry as one of the fundamental first messages from Bhagavad-Gita, from Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Don't cry. And crying is basically the loss of prajna. When we are crying, when we are grieving, our consciousness is not stable. It's gone. We are aprajna, prajna avada, the way we can see. That is what we could see in sloka number 11. So prajna avadan bhashate can be understood as prajna vadan iti bhashate or prajna avadan iti bhashate. So we saw that, right? So this entire section, the 20 slokas from sloka number 11 to sloka number 30, we can call it as the don't cry section. The first message from Gita, the first message from Bhagavan Sri Krishna is don't cry. Get back to your senses. Prajnavada iti bhava, come back to your senses is the first thing, right? Now, one is don't cry. It's a consistent message after explaining the eternality of the Atma and things like that. Again, he is coming back to the loop, closing the loop of why you should not cry. So he started off with don't cry after explaining the eternality of the Atma, the importance of bearing the momentary pain, of having being firm in our resolute way to achieve something which will then take us to immortality, knowing that nothing is this is indestructible. None of the material level world can impact this. Multiple ways it's been explained, right, so far. Understanding all of these things, don't cry is again. This is why you should not cry. He just didn't say don't cry. He explains that in a very beautiful manner. Don't cry. That is one. Second thing is between this shloka and the previous shloka. Okay, this is very interesting. Okay, some of us might want to do a detailed study. If you look at shloka number 24, whatever begins with right? Achedya, adahya, akledya, ashoshya. Na chedya becomes achedya, right? So basically nakara is basically a negative word. Na dvaita iti advaita, right? Na anta iti ananta. So the negation is what brings us the letter A in most of the instances. Avyakta, achedya, adahya, ashoshya, akledya, right? Between the previous shloka, shloka number 24 and 25, there are 8 such negative words used. Achedya, adahya, akledya, ashoshya. Okay, these are the 4 negative terms used in the previous shloka, shloka number 24. And in the current shloka, he says avyakta, achintya, avikarya, right? 7. There is something called achala in the previous shloka. Okay, so there are 8 total negative words being used by Sri Krishna. Now come back to Arjuna's agony, right? Moment of agony, the moment of grief. There he is expressing 8 characteristics of his grief, the physical conditions of his grief. I think shloka number 30. I think shloka number 30, okay, or 29. He starts off with saying, Sidanti mama gatrani, 1. Mukham cha parishushyati, 2. Vepatuscha sharire me, 3. Roma harshascha jayate, 4. Gandivam sramsate hastat, 5. Tvakchaiva paridahyate, 6. Nacha shaknomi avasthatum, 7. Bhramati vacha me manaha, right? 8. These are basically Sidanti mama gatrani. My limbs are freezing. Mukham cha parishushati. My face is getting dried up. Vepatuscha sharire me. My body is trembling. Roma harshascha jayate. My body hairs are standing straight. Gandivam samsate hastat. My bow is slipping off from my hand. Tvakchaiva paridahyati. My skin seems to be burning. Nacha shaknomi avasthatum. I am unable to stand up properly. Brahmati vacha me manaha. My mind is getting turbulent. It's whirling. It's spinning. My head is spinning. So these are the 8 conditions, physical conditions. Krishna answers it back with 8 negative states of the Atma. None of this is applicable to the Atma. None of this is applicable to the Dehi. None of this is applicable to the one inside the Deha, inside the Sharira. I think somebody who can analyze this, there is a one-to-one correlation between them. And then he gives a few positive ones also, non-negative explanation like Nitya, Sarvagataha, Sthanuhu, Sanatanaha. So there are 4 non-negative explanations given, characteristics given, attributes given of the Dehi, and 8 negative, primarily to negate the condition as expressed by Arjuna from sloka number 29 for about a couple of slokas in the first chapter. Right? So that is something that we can note. So again, more and more attributes, but the main important moot point is don't cry. Na anushochitum arhasi. You don't deserve to cry. So that's the core message coming from this. Right? We move on to sloka number 26 now. On the top, we have the next link. We move on. अथ चैनं नित्यजातं नित्यं वा मन्यसे मृतं तथापि त्वं महाबाहो नैवं शोचितुमर्हसि. Let's see what the Padacheda says. Right? Padacheda says, Atha cha enam chainam. Cha enam becomes chainam. Nitya jatam nityam va manyase vritam. Tatha api becomes tatha api. Api tvam. Mahabaho na enam becomes nainam. Shochitum arhasi. So these are the breakdowns. Right? Couple of sandhis there, not many. So these breakdown of the words, when we assemble them, jumble them, and bring them back to the order, right? Anvaya, the prose order sounds like this. Atha cha enam nitya jatam nityam va vritam iti manyase. Right? Tatha api he mahabaho tvam evam shochitum na arhasi. Very beautifully. Before I say beautifully, let's come on top and click on the dictionary because this website helps us a lot. Now, one more thing. See, some of us in the English, right, try to bring the same meaning in your own Bharatiya Bhasha. The prose order makes even more sensible. Like if you look at Atha cha enam nityam jatam nityam va vritam iti manyase. परंतु अगर इसको नित्य जात है या नित्य मृत है ऐसे मानोगे. I think my Hindi is horrible, but if you can put it in your own mother tongue, local Bharatiya Bhasha, the Anvaya, the prose order makes even more sensible. English is a little funny, right? So we will see that. Atha cha enam, even if also this or to this, nityam jatam nityam va mritam iti manyase. It is always born and always dead. And you think so. Okay. Manyase is you think so. Thou thinkest. Again, this translation, it's good website, but sometimes the translation is also very accurate. But from a day-to-day colloquial sense, it might sound a little funny. Right? So we'll ignore such things. So what he says is, Atha cha enam nityam jatam nityam va mritam iti manyase. Even if you were to think that this is nitya born and nitya dead, like which is basically there is nothing called eternality between the birth and the death. There is nothing else, right? After the death and before the birth, there was nothing. Whatever is there, it is only in between, right? He Mahabaho, Tatha Ati He Mahabaho. Even then, still, O Mahabaho, O mighty arm one. Mahabahu is basically the one with Maha, big Bahu, the shoulder, the one who can bear a lot of shoulder a lot. That is Arjuna. Arjuna is almost like half the army of the Pandavas, right? So he can bear a lot of responsibility. And he's got mighty shoulders. Tvam evam shochitum na arhasi. You don't deserve to cry like this. Right? So basically what it means is when you click on the Aurobindo interpretation of the shloka, I'm clicking on the wrong link. You come down, even if you thinkest it is as being constantly subject to birth and death, still, O mighty armed one, O Arjuna, you should not grieve. And I'm just changing the words a little bit. Now, a couple of things about this, right? So, the previous shloka, he says, know the eternality of the Atma. If you know that, you don't deserve to cry. very beautiful, right? Avyakta, Achintya, Akledya, Adahya, Avyakta, all those negative things about, the non-negative attributes of the Atma. Now, here he says, even if you were to think that it is born and dead, and there is nothing afterwards, which is basically the belief of the Charvaka school. People who are Gnostics, right? They don't believe in the eternality of the Atma. Okay, so now Krishna is saying, even if you were to think like a Charvaka, oh Arjuna, right? You shouldn't cry because you are a Mahabahu. You have a great responsibility, right? So people with great responsibility. He also explains that later why people with great responsibility should adhere to this path. That comes later, but he's now reminding, boss, you have such a great responsibility. Like initially we heard, right? Duryodhana's expression, Bhimarjuna Samayudhi. Arjuna is half the entire might of the Pandava army. No matter how many Akshoheni Sainyas are being part of the alliance, Bhima and Arjuna are quintessentially one half and the other half of the entire Pandava army. Okay, you are Mahabahu. You are such a great, person. You have such great responsibilities on you. How can you cry? Right? Even if you were to think like a Charvaka. So basically, one thing, maybe, we may not be right? But one of the things that could come is that even if we were to think like Charvakas, I think Krishna has a message for all of us in Bhagavad-Gita. Not only for those people who are Astikas, who believe in the eternality. I think perhaps there is some message for the non-believers also in the eternality of the Atma. Here he says that even if you were to think that this Atma, nothing called Atma, he didn't even say Atma, right? Because Atma then becomes Adatte iti Atma, the one that receives. There is nothing to receive, so how can there be? Even if you were to think that this body is all it is, from the time you are born till the death is all it is. There is nothing before, there is nothing after. There is nothing after. Even if you were to think like that, oh Mahabahu, oh mighty shouldered one, you have such a great responsibility, which is also true because the progeny of the Kuru Vamsha, right? The Kuru Vamsha got furthered because of Arjuna's sons and Parikshita, Janamejaya. So all the stories, Mahabharata we hear through the talk given to Janamejaya, right, by Vaishampayana. That's the big Mahabharata we get to hear. The first Bharata we get to hear is from the conversation between Vaishampayana and Janamejaya, and that is Arjuna's progeny. That is Arjuna's bloodline. So that's the greatness of Arjuna, right? So Bhima Arjuna Sama, he's one half of the entire army, the might of the Pandava. So you have such a great responsibilities, you can't cry. Again, the underlining point, the previous sloka also ended with Naivam Na Anushochitu Marhasi. Here he says Na Enam Shochitu Marhasi. Na Evam Shochitu Marhasi. You don't deserve to cry like this. Right? So this is the sloka number 26. We move on to sloka number 27. On the top of the screen we have next. When we click on the next, we see this. जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युर्ध्रुवं जन्म मृतस्य च तस्मादपरिहार्येऽर्थे न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि. So that's how it sounds. When we scroll down a little, we see the Padacheda. The Padacheda sounds like this. Jatasya hi dhruvaha mrityuhu. Dhruvo mrityuhu. Mrityuhu dhruvam. Mrityur dhruvam. So first instance, aha, the visarga becomes O. The second instance, aha, the visarga becomes ur. Mrityur dhruvam janma mritasya cha tasmad apariharye. Tasmad apariharye. So ta becomes ta. Tasmad apariharye. Harye arthe harye. The akara in artha goes missing. It hides. It has the form of the S mark. Natvam shochitum arhati. These are the words broken down. When we go on the top, we get to see, right, the Anvaya. Hi jatasya mrityuhu dhruvaha. Mrityasya janma cha dhruvam. Tasmat apariharye arthe tvam shochitum na arhasi. Right? Now again, he changes the track now, comes back to the believer's discourse. But yeah, let's see what it means. One is that we can see Natvam Shochitum Arhasi. That means very consistent. The last three slokas are all about don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. Again, consistent with the sloka number 11. Ashochya, don't cry, right? So let's click on dictionary. When we click on dictionary, he jatasya mrityuhu dhruvaha. For indeed, for the born, death is certain. Right? For Jatasya, for the born, of the born, death is uncertain. Death is certain. Dhruvaha Bhrutasya, Bhrutasya cha Janma Dhruvam. And also for the dead, a birth is guaranteed, certain. Right? Tasmat, therefore, apariharye arthe, for things, for the matter which are inevitable, apariharya. There is, see, parihara is where there is a solution, right? But this is aparihar. There is no solution. This is inevitable, right? Apariharye arthe, for those that are inevitable. Tvam shochitum na arhati. You, for to cry, don't deserve, ought not to. So, when you go back to the shloka, the link called the shloka, and scroll down a little, we get to see, right? Aurobindo's interpretation. Scroll down a little bit on the shloka link. For certain is death for the born, and certain is birth for the dead. Therefore, what is inevitable ought not to be a cause of your sorrow, O Arjuna. Right? Very beautiful. Right? If you're dead, see, for the dead, being born may not be that applicable for the Charvaka, as was highlighted or hinted in the previous shloka. But death is obviously certain for somebody who's born. That Arjuna knows very, very well. And see, Arjuna is also rooted in the teachings, right? The Veda, Adhyayanas, and things like that. So he understands these things. But again, coming back to the point, in different ways, Krishna is telling, don't cry, or why you should not cry, why you don't deserve to cry, right? Understand inevitability, the eternality of the Atma. Understand that you have a greater responsibility, and understand that these are inevitable. Right? He brings in three beautiful expressions to say why you should not cry. Right? Between shloka number 25, 26, and 27, this is the three things that he says. And then to establish the eternality, he speaks a lot. He goes on to explain right from shloka number 15 onward. He goes on to explain the eternality. Right? So very beautiful discourse so far. Now we move on to shloka number 28. Shloka number 28 reads like this. Avyaktadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata avyaktanidhananyeva tatra ka paridevana. So, Padacheda says avyakta adini bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata avyakta nidhanani eva. Nidhanani eva becomes nidhananyeva. The other sandhi is called nidhananyeva. Tatra ka paridevana? Question mark. Okay, so Anvaya, goes order, right? On the top, just on the top. Hey Bharata, Bhutani Adini Avyakta. So Avyakta Adini Avyakta Nidhanani. Bhutani Avyakta Adini Avyakta Nidhanani. Vyakta Madhyani Eva. Tatra ka paridevana? He's again asking a question to Arjuna. Right? So first thing, see, again, Bhagavad-Gita started with a question. There are many areas where Krishna keeps asking the question. I think those are very beautiful shlokas. Right? Every shloka where Krishna is asking question, these are amazing questions. For somebody interested, we can always make that study. One moment. We click on the dictionary. When we click on the dictionary, we see, hey Bharata, oh descendant of Bharata Vamsha, right? Which is Arjuna. Oh Bharata, Bhutani Avyakta Adini. All the living beings are manifest or unmanifest in the beginning. Like before the birth, we were unmanifest. Avyakta Nidhanani. And we become unmanifest after the death. In disintegration. Nidhanani. Nidhana means disintegration, right? Soul disintegration, body disintegration. Avyakta Madhyani Eva. We are manifest only in the middle. Right? Tatraka Paridevana. What is there to be grieved upon in that kind of an instant? Right? So, so this is something that very similar to, I think, Adi Shankara Bhagavad-Pada, he gives that explanation, quoting the Mausala Parva, right? Where Krishna goes to meet Gandhari much later. This is much after this Bhagavad-Gita. But Krishna says very similar, something very similar to Gandhari. When Gandhari grieves about Duryodhana's death, right? He says something like, Adarshana Dapatika, adarshanam gataha. Okay, so he was not there before, and he also goes adarshanam, punascha adarshanam gataha. He also, now he's again gone without any sight. He was not seen before, now he's unseen again. Because he's talking about Duryodhana before the birth. Okay, he was not there, and now he's again become unseen. Adarshata, na asau tavana tasyatvam. You are not his, nor is he yours. Okay, prathaka paridevana. So why are you grieving? So Krishna tells a very similar thing to Gandhari as well. So and he's telling the same thing to uh, Arjuna here. All the Bhutani, all the living beings, they were unmanifest before. We're going to become unmanifest later also. We are only manifested now. And this manifestation is also funny, right? I think one of the shlokas, one of the Upanishads, I don't remember that. When somebody was asked, do you want to be born again? His primary question was, which manifestation of mine should I take? That question. Because he's had multiple manifestations. So the manifestations are also multiple, right? And manifest, we get into a manifestation, we become unmanifest again another manifestation. It goes on and on and on and on. So which manifestation do you want to come back to? That kind of a question also comes. So when we look at the eternality, then this manifest is only transient, right? It's just temporary. It just goes. So let's come back to the shloka link. When we see the Aurobindo interpretation, beings are unmanifest in the beginning, they are only manifest in the middle. O Bharata, unmanifest likewise are they in disintegration. What is there to be grieved upon? Right? That's the kind of interpretation. So very brief. We move on to shloka number 29. Shloka number 29 reads like this. On the top of the screen, you have the next button. Please click on that. We will go to the next one. Asharyavat pashyati kaschidенam आश्चर्यवद् वदति तथैव चान्यः आश्चर्यवच्चैनम् अन्यः शृणोति श्रुत्वाप्येनं वेद न चैव कश्चित्. Right? When we look at the padacheda for this, it sounds like this. Padacheda sounds like one moment. Ascharyavat pashyati. Kaschit enam becomes kachidenam. Ta becomes kachidenam. Ascharyavat vadati becomes ascharyavad vadati. Tatha eva tathaiva. Tatha eva cha anyah chanyah. Ascharyavat cha becomes ascharyavat cha. Ascharyavat cha becomes two in front of cha becomes the chu. Ascharyavat cha, ascharyavat cha. Shutva. Cha enam chainam. Chainam. Anyah shrunoti. Shrutva api shrutva. Api enam apyenam. Api enam. Vedana cha eva chaiva kaschit. So this is the breakdown of the words. When we put them back into the order, we get to see the prose order, which is the Anvaya. Kaschit enam ascharyavat pashyati. Tatha eva cha anyah ascharyavat vadati. Anyah cha enam ascharyavat shrunoti. Na kaschit cha shrutva api enam veda eva. Na veda eva. So let's see what kind of an impression this is. When we click back on the dictionary on the top, we get to see what this sentence means. Kaschit, okay, some, kaschit, some people, someone, kaschit, enam ascharyavat iti pashyati. Enam, isko, ascharyavat iti dekhte hain. They see it as ascharyavat. They see it as surprising, a mysterious thing. Ascharyavat, right? Ascharyavat is very mysterious, very surprising kind of thing. So some people see it as a very surprising, mysterious element. Tatha eva cha anyaha ascharyavat vadati, and some people speak about it as something very mysterious, like a mystery, like a mysterious thing or a very surprising thing. The anyaha cha, and also some others, enam isko, for this, to this, ascharyavat shrunoti, they hear about it as something very mysterious. So some people see it as very mysterious, some people hear about it as very mysterious, some people speak about it as something very mysterious. Right? Na kaschit cha, and not none also. Okay? Shrutva api enam veda eva. Even after hearing about it, they understand about it. they understand it, right? So even after, so basically, there are different people who speak about this Dehi, Sharirinaha, which is basically Atma. We know it is implying the Atma, but he's not using that word. He's calling it as Dehi. He's calling it as Sharirinaha. He's calling it as Dehinaha. Different words, but he's not mentioning Atma, right? That is implied. And he's telling there are many people who see it to be very mysterious. And there are many people who speak about it as very, very mysterious. And there are some people who hear about it as very, very mysterious. And but none, even after hearing about it, they verily know it. They know it really. Okay. I think this is also coming very, see, we saw a couple of instances where Krishna directly quotes from Kataka Upanishad. I think this message is also very clearly coming from Kataka Upanishad. There are, mantras, that clearly say, Acharyo Vakta Kushalo Shalabha Charyo Jnata Kushala Mushishta. So there are many parts within the Kataka Upanishad also. Like, even if you hear about it, okay, Shunvanto Pibahavo Yamna Vidyu, like, even after hearing about it, you will never be able to know about it. So again, Krishna constantly brings in the messages, nothing new being quoted primarily, right? Bhagavad-Gita. He's bringing the references back to the Upanishads and then repeating the messages from Upanishads, but he's packaging it in a flow where it is giving a yoga shastra, a step-by-step understanding, right? So basically now he's telling some people hear about it as something very mysterious, some people see it to be, so there's some experience also possible, right? You're able to experience that there's something inside, but each one, has its own mysterious way of, seeing it, speaking about it, hearing about it. But no one, even after hearing about it, will know it properly, right? So that's the kind of an impression. Let's see what the Aurobindo interpretation says. Come back to the shloka, link called the shloka, and scroll down a little, and you'll see on the board. One sees it as a mystery, or one speaks of it or hears of it as a mystery. But no one knows it. That, in bracket, the self, the one, the divine, we look on and speak and hear of as the wonderful beyond our comprehension. For after all our learning from those who have knowledge, no human mind has ever known this absolute. Now, these are some of the interpretations which are pure words, but I think the core meaning of the shloka is some people see it as a mysterious object, some people speak about it as a mysterious thing, some people hear about it as very, very acharyavat, and none, even after hearing about it, we know about it. That's the very basic thing. But I think there are some interpretations we can always refer to them, right? So now, again, don't bother about Atma. You and I, we have always been there. That's the second message, right? Shloka number 12. Natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadipa. You and I and all these kings have always lived since eternity, and we will remain to be for eternity from now. Don't bother. And now he's telling, don't bother too much about this Dehi, about the Sharira. You won't know about it too much. Don't break your head, because now is not the time for contemplation. The briefing is given. Now get back to the work. So he has to bring him back to the work, right? So he's bringing back. So we'll move on to the next shloka, shloka number 30. Okay, on the top of the screen we have the next link called the next. When you click on that, Dehi nityamavadhyoyam Dehe sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvam shochitum arhasi. Again, natvam shochitum arhasi. We can easily see this, right? Don't cry. You don't deserve to cry. Let's see what the Padacheda says. Dehi nityam avadhyaha ayam avadhyoyam. Very similar sentence. Avadhyaha ayam. Dehe sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvam shochitum arhasi. Right? Very consistent. I think now 5 slokas in these last 20 slokas talking about don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. 5 times we are hearing this, right? I think they can call this as a natvam shochitum arhati. Somebody were to make this as a section, sloka number 11 to 30, these 20 slokas are all about don't cry, don't panic. Douglas Adams, right? He says, don't panic. So yeah, Anvaya, He Bharata, Sarvasya Dehe, Ayam Dehi, Nityam Avadhyaha, Tasmat Tvam, Sarvani Bhutani Uddishya, Shochitum Na Arhasi. Uddishya is something in the bracket. It's an implied one. It's an interpreted part. We will see what it means. Right? When you go on top, the link called the dictionary, when you click on that, Hey Bharata, oh descendant of Bharata Vamsha, oh Arjuna, right? Arjuna is basically, so the Dhritarashtra has been referred to as Bharata in this Bhagavad Gita. Even Arjuna, they're all descendants of Bharata, Bharata Vamsha. Hey Bharata, oh Arjuna, Sarvasya Dehe, in everybody's body, of everyone in the body. Ayam Dehi, this dweller of the body. Okay, Nityam Avadhyaha, he is eternal, indestructible. Okay, so final conclusion of the last 10, 12 odd slokas. Final conclusion. This Dehi, the dweller in the body, is indestructible. Right? Tasma Tvam, therefore you, Sarvani Bhutani. Okay, looking at every creature, or grasping, uddishya, addressing the entire creature, like all the living beings. So basically now, the way it appears, uddishya is like referring to, right? So now, having referred to all living beings, shochitum na arhasi, you don't deserve to cry. Okay, so that's the kind of impression you get. On the top again, click on the shloka, you come down below. We look for Sri Aurobindo's interpretation. This dweller in the body of everyone is eternal and indestructible. Okay, Nitya Avadhya. Right? So these are the two final conclusions. This dweller in the body, which we call, most of the translations will call this as Atma directly. But this website is somehow keeping the distance, right? So it's nice website translation. But sometimes it becomes difficult to understand. Right? So everyone, so the dweller in the body is eternal and indestructible, O Bharata. Therefore, you should not grieve for any creature, for anybody, for any bhuta. Right? Sarvani bhutani uddishya nattu shochitum arhati. You can't grieve for any living being. Forget about Bhishma Drona. You can't grieve for any living being. Like that's what he says, right? Gatasun shana vishochitum arhati. Nanu shochanti pandita. That's the second line in shloka number 11. The 11th shloka says that what goes and what does not go, what remains, nobody cries. A pandita definitely doesn't cry. Right? So basically between 11 and 30, these 20 shlokas, he delivers one consistent message. Don't cry, get back to your senses, understand this Atma, right? Understand the eternality of the Atma. It is all coming from that great, great thing, Avinashi, Yena Sarva Vidam Tasam. And then a person who can somehow bear with these momentary causes of pain and pleasure and things like that, those are the people who really get pledged strongly towards immortality. I think that's the core essence of these 20 shlokas, the last one. We quickly move on. In the meanwhile, I think let's keep the hand raising option open. We will conclude the room in about 10 minutes time because we keep this as strictly academic exercises and we conclude at 9:30 India time. If anybody has any questions, please do join us. Now I will move on to shloka number 31. So now he changes the discourse. After telling don't cry, now he brings him back to another very important thing. Let's see what shloka number 31 reads. It says, Swadharmamati chavekshya navikampitum dharmyati yuddhat shreyonyat kshatriyasya na vidyate. So when we come down a little bit, let's see the Padacheda. Padacheda says, Swadharmam api cha avekshya, cha avekshya becomes cha avekshya, na vikampitum arhasi, dharmyadhi, dharmyadhi, yuddhat shreya, ta becomes cha, and sha also becomes cha. Yuddhat shreya, anyat kshatriyasya na vidyate. So this is the word breakdown. When we put them into order, the prose order, the Anvaya sounds like Swadharmam picha avekshya vikampitum na arhasi. He dharmyat yuddha kshatriyasya anyat shreya na vidyate. This is an inflection. This is one inflection point in this discourse of Bhagavad-Gita. And we will see why. Let's see what this sloka means in its meaning, right? So we go on the top, we click on dictionary. When we click on the dictionary, see, Swadharmam apicha avekshya. When you look at your own dharma, when you consider your own swadharma is one's own dharma, right? Swadharma. Apicha, okay, also. Okay. Avekshya, having looked into or having considered avekshya. Vikampitum na arhasi. To tremble you do not deserve. Na arhasi, you don't deserve, right? He dharmyat yuddha, indeed, for verily, dharmyat yuddha, than a dharma yuddha. Kshatriyasya, for a kshatriya, of a kshatriya, anyat shreyaha na vidyate. Another greater thing does not exist, is not known. Na vidyate is not known. Vidhi is basically known, right? Is not known. Basically, he's telling, if you consider your own dharma, you don't deserve to tremble like this. Why? Because that's the thing, condition he also knows. Body is trembling, right? Vepatuscha sharirene, my body is trembling. It's like, na vikampitu marhasi, vikampana, kampana, all of these are same, right? So, you don't deserve to shake, tremble like this if you consider your own swadharma, because for a kshatriya, there is nothing greater than a dharma yuddha. Now, Shreya is a very important word, right? Because that's the precise question from Arjuna. I think in sloka number 7 of this chapter, in the sloka number 7, he makes it very, very clear. He says, Yat Shreyasya Nishchitam Bruhi Tanvi. Tell me definitively what is Shreyaskara for me. Tell me what is it that is Shreya for me. Shishyasteham, I am your Shishya. Shadimam Swam Prapannam. And also I surrender unto you. So now he is coming back. So Krishna is not giving unnecessary jam. He is coming back to the core question. The only question is, I want to know what is Shreyasara for me from Arjuna. Krishna has directly come to it. Follow your Swadharma. There is nothing greater than Swadharma. For a Kshatriya, there is nothing better than a Dharma Yuddha. Now, Dharma Yuddha, there is a very distorted way of understanding that to be religious war. No, it is not. Dharma is not religion. Dharma is what is good for each one. Swadharma is my own duty. So there are other discussions we can have, but somehow when we are understanding these things, we have to somehow remove the pain that we carry from the current distortion. So that is something that we all need to carry. Let us see what the Aurobindo translation says. On the top, if we click back on Shloka and come down a little, scroll down a little, see Aurobindo interpretation. Further looking into your own law of action, you should not tremble. There is nothing greater good for a Kshatriya than his righteous battle, not religious battle. Right? So Dharma Yuddha is righteous battle. Very beautifully put. Okay, that's the thing. So do your duty, boss. Do what is ordained for you, what you are capable of, what you are good at, which is the work. That itself is good for you. If you really want to know what is good for me, that's your question. Shloka number 7. This is what is good for you. Go do your duty. Be active in this Dharma Yuddha. He's coming back, right? He's coming back to the discourse. We move on, Shloka number 31, because now he explains this is all Swadharma, right? All the shlokas now, the next 10 shlokas from Shloka number 31 to Shloka number 40, it's all about Dharma. We will go on explaining Dharma. The last 20 shlokas he explained about don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, get back to your prajna. Now these 10 shlokas from Shloka number 31 to Shloka number 40 is all about Swadharma. We will get to hear more and more about Swadharma. Because Dharma is what is good for me, right? Now we will see why it is called like that. Now Shloka number 32, right? Shloka number 32 reads like this. Yadrichaya chopapannam swargadvaramapavrutam sukhinah kshatriya partha labante yuddhamidrisham. The Padacheda, Yadrichaya, Cha Upapannam, Chopapannam. Cha Upapannam becomes Chopapannam. Swargadwaram Apavritam. Sukhinaha Kshatriyaha Partha Labhante Yuddham Idrisham. Right? So, only one sandhi in this shloka. Let's see how the jumbled up words actually come back to an order, in the prose order, in the Anvaya. He Partha, Yadrichaya Swargadwaram Apavritam. Upapannam cha idrisham yuddham sukinaha kshatriyaha labante. He's telling the greatness about this kind of a righteous battle, right? Dharma yuddha. When you click on dictionary on the top, it says, Hey Partha, O son of Pritha, O Arjuna, Hey Partha, Yat Richaya, Yadrichaya. Okay. Unexpectedly. Yadrichaya means on its own, automatically, by itself. Yat Richaya, by itself, right? On its own, of itself. Upapannam has come. Right? Aparutam, open. Swargadwaram. Okay. Swargadwaram, see again, this is a little distortion. Heaven, gates of heaven, they say. But Swarga primarily means a greater position, right? Higher position. Right? So heaven is considered to be higher, but a higher position, basically. Idrisham, like this, okay, such, like, Yuddham, the battle. Sukinaha, happy, Kshatriyaha, Kshatriyas, Labante, they get. A war, a great war like this, which is an easy ticket for fame for anybody. Kshatriyas will happily take this, lap it up. That's the message, right? So let's see what Aurobindo interpretation says. Aurobindo interpretation says, when such a battle comes to them, which is for the Kshatriyas, of itself like the open gate to heaven, happy are the Kshatriyas then, O Partha, O Arjuna. Right? I mean, English can sometimes be a little, we might get a little dislocated. Let's come back. So, the simple interpretation for this is, happy are those Kshatriyas for whom comes unexpectedly a battle like this, which is directly opening up the gates of heaven, gates of Swarga, which is taking you to a higher abode. He explains why also later, right? So now, if there are some messages that are completely unanswered, he will answer them. We will quickly see one shloka and then perhaps adjourn for the day. And then keep it open for the question. Please do come up on the stage if you have any questions. We will have one more shloka read and then we conclude for the day, adjourn for the day. And from the next week, we will proceed with shloka number 34. So now we'll quickly look at shloka number 33. अथ चेत्त्वमिमं धर्म्यं सङ्ग्रामं न करिष्यसि ततः स्वधर्मं कीर्तिं च हित्वा पापमवाप्स्यसि. Now, Swarga, right? What is greater for you? Now, more and more points are coming, right? So, people who look at this yuddha, this kind of an opportunity, which is directly a gateway to Swarga. Let's keep the word heaven away, because Swarati, Giyate, Meru, the Shikara of the Meru, right? Swarga has different meanings, right? We'll look at them a little later. But, that kind of a mentality, we will see what this shloka is trying to say. Atha chet tvamimam dharmyam sangramam na karishyati tatah swadharmam kirtim cha hitva papamavapsyasi. Let's see what Padacheda says. Atha chet tvam imam dharmyam sangramam na karishyati tatah swadharmam kirtim cha hitva papam avapsyasi. No sandhi, right? So there is no sandhi. We will quite directly go to Anvaya, the prose order, all these broken down words, right? Atha tvam imam dharmyam sangramam na karishyati chet tataha swadharmam kirtim cha hitva papam avapsyasi. Now again, we have to hold on to some of the meanings away from the current state, current levels of distortion. Let us see what these words mean. So now, and then we'll revisit them the next week when we resume next Saturday. We'll quickly click on the dictionary link. So some of the answers do come in the few shlokas that follow. Let's see. Atha tvam imam dharmyam sangramam na karishyati. Agar tum is dharma sangram ko na karoge. If you do not perform this dharma sangrama, the battle of dharma, atha and tvam, you, imam, this dharma sangramam, the battle of righteousness, na karishyati, will not do. Chet, if, okay, karishyati chet, tataha swadharmam kirtim cha hitva. Then swadharma and kirti ko hit, मार कर ले, हत्या करके, hitva, having abandoned, having killed your kirti, your name, glory, and swadharma, your own duty, right? Virtue. Papam avapsyasi, you will acquire papa, you will incur papa. Now again, we will keep papa as not sin, okay? Sin, all virtue. I think we can keep them slightly away. Let's keep them as papa, punya, if the word punya comes, but we will call it as papa, right? Papa is basically something that will give me the patana, right? It will relegate me. We will see that later. So we will call it as something that relegates me. So basically, the thing, if you do not engage yourself in this dharma yuddha, you will give up your swadharma, you will get infamy, like you will become infamous, and you will acquire papa. That's the message. Let's see what the Aurobind interpretation says. When you click on the link or the shloka and scroll down a little, see Aurobindo's interpretation says, but if you do not in this battle for the right, then have you abandoned your duty and virtue and your glory, and sin shall be your portion. Oh, it's too complicated, but basically, if you do not engage yourself in this battle, then know that you have abandoned your or killed your swadharma and your kirti, your glory, and you have acquired avapsyasi, acquired papa. I think we will stop here. If there are any questions, we will take them. If not, we will conclude for the day. Thanks everyone for joining and listening in. This is something that we do every Saturday, 8 o'clock to 9:30 for about 9